Now excited to be joined by a very special guest, a first-time guest. It is Plank Show host and host of about a million other things, Mr. Oklahoma, Chris Plank. Chris, maybe I shouldn't have called you Mr. Oklahoma because on this show that title might have been reserved for a certain late Toby Keith.
Oh,
I know.
yes.
Let's start there. Do you have a favorite Toby Keith story?
Yeah, the joy he had in all the years run together. I think it was the 13 Sugar Bowl. It was really kind of the first time. So I've been doing sidelines for OU football since 2011, and I kind of got to know Toby Keith a little bit because he's at every game, but you didn't really know him, and I hadn't really known him, I guess I should say. And then we went through that whole season where things weren't going. There's my first week. Things weren't going all that well for Oklahoma. They tried. I think Baylor kicked them pretty good on like a Thursday or a Friday night, and you just didn't know where the team was going. And they won their last three games. I think Bob Stoops set the all-time wins record that year. And then we played Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. And I remember Toby Keith afterwards just as happy as I've ever seen an individual in my life because they'd beaten Big Bad Bama and this team that had struggled this year finally got a big dub. He was, obviously a big softball guy. I've been the voice of the Sooner softball team since 16. Seeing him sing last year and perform at their championship, and it's been kind of weird if this makes sense. I knew he was a country star, right? You knew he's a rock star, but I don't know if you really knew to what level until after he passed because he was Toby Keith. He was Toby. He was at the games, and you'd say, hey, and he'd know who you are. And that was really cool, but then you didn't realize how many people he had touched and how amazing his music was and how widespread it was, I think, until we had lost him. So he's missed, man. He was a major part of everything that happened around Oklahoma. And yeah, he truly was Mr. Oklahoma. The water tower in Moore, the home of Toby Keith. It's emblazoned as soon as you start getting into Norman territory. So I miss him a lot. He's a great guy.
We do on this show, we call them Toby Keith games, and that is a how do you like me now game for a coach.
I like it.
You know, and we're going to continue that. I think we need to. It's just you kind of hear it and you're like, all right, you know, when a coach puffs his chest out after a big time victory, it just kind of makes sense. It embodies that song. Unfortunately, though, we do need a new non-athlete Oklahoma enthusiast. Is it Jim Ross? Is it my guy Tarinoka? Like that makes most sense, probably.
Yeah, you know, Dari's everywhere too, so that would be a good one. You know, Brad Pitt has some Oklahoma in him. I don't know how, and I don't know where, but when Oklahoma played in the Rose Bowl at Baker Mayfield's final year, I think it was 17. Suddenly, there's all these shots of Brad Pitt in the stands wearing OU gear, and it's like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool, but I don't know if I've seen him since. Bill Hader, Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
He grew up in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. So I don't know if he can slide in and be our Oklahoma guy. Would love to have him at more events. But yeah, JR, good old Jim Ross, man. That's our guy right there. Funny story, whenever I loved wrestling as a kid. I still love it today. But my first knowing what Oklahoma was Jim Ross talking about Oklahoma. And thus I've been here now for 30 years. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, JR, and then we'll find out about Bill Hader. We'll find out about Brad Pitt's tie. And then why do I always forget the guy who's married to Gwen Stefani?
Blake Shelton.
Blake Shelton's from Ada, Oklahoma. So, but I think he might be more of an Oklahoma State guy. I don't know, and that's fine. But man, we've got some options. I think there are in the country music world.
There's a lot of options in country. There's almost too many options. Like Carrie, Miranda Lambert, or you could probably
Carrie's an Oklahoma girl. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably go up and down, but it almost feels like we should just leave the country music slot for Toby Keith. It's just as it relates to Oklahoma athletics. If somebody stepped in and all of a sudden is that every single Oklahoma sporting event's like, oh, I got to do this. That was in country music. It'd be a little bit tough. So yeah, maybe
you know what?
Someone else.
Let me go ahead because there's a chance they could see it. Every member of Kings of Leon, diehard Oklahoma fans. So maybe there's our guys right there. And I know not only are they diehard fans, but they'll show up at games. They'll post on message boards. They'll be guests on podcasts. And the Kings of Leon crew, that's probably right up there with JR right now.
Big music state, Oklahoma is, man.
Look at
It's
us.
unbelievable. It really is. What's the feeling in Norman after Dylan Gabriel left for Oregon, Jeff Lebby left for Mississippi State? Because everything that I've been able to kind of gather is that there is a lot of internal confidence about this Jackson Arnold, Seth Littrell duo and what they could be capable of doing.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. There's a ton of internal confidence. And, you know, it's interesting. It was a bad bowl game, right? I mean, you have 6 turnovers, and not all of them, obviously, on Jackson Arnold. But I'm one of those people that think they're going to be better for it. It's funny. I bring up the Sugar Bowl in 20 after the 2013 season, so the 2014 Sugar Bowl. Oklahoma won that, and we thought they're on a rocket ship. Look out, Trevor Knight's coming back. It's going to be, and then it doesn't necessarily go so well for him, and that was a really, really rough 2014 season. So, bowl momentum is always a fun debate. I don't know if it exists, but with Nico and Tennessee, they feel like they've got all the momentum in the world because he had a good bowl game, right? Jackson Arnold, I think nationally people look at it as like, oh, how many interceptions did he throw? It's going to suck. But in that same vein, I think it was great for him. I think he learned a lot. I think that was the first time that Seth Littrell had called plays in a really long time. And I feel like they got a pretty good understanding of what works and what doesn't work. And I think it's one of the most fascinating springs that Oklahoma's had in a long time. Spring football, it starts next Monday for OU. Their spring game is April 20th. But outside of Brent Venables' first season, whenever it was a how dare Lincoln Riley leave us, the snake, mule shoe snake, and all that, and the juice to say we're fine. You're going into a new conference, new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and Zach Alley coming over. A lot of intriguing names coming in a very ballyhooed and talked about recruiting class. So, yeah, the confidence is high because Jackson Arnold had been that guy through everything that had stayed with Oklahoma, through a really bad first season. He stayed. Through Sitton last year, he stayed. Through Jeff Lebby leaving, he stayed. And he had always seemed to be that dude that wants to be the guy. He can sling it. He can move. He's a true dual threat quarterback. So there is a lot of internal confidence because I feel like the internal confidence that JFA, Jackson F and Arnold, that's what they go by as Sooner Bit. There's a lot of confidence that JFA seems to have. And, it's just they really seem to have surrounded him with a lot of good weapons. Now, biggest question in spring ball is going to be how the offensive line comes together. But the national narrative on Oklahoma could not be more different than what the internal narrative on Oklahoma is in their future right now.
I agree with that. And I went back and I watched the bowl game because, I'm, very much, I am the leader of the Noah Fafita bandwagon. So it's hard for me to look at things besides him. But
right.
I wanted to go back and look at this because I was examining, why there's really not a typical year two progression for a 5-star quarterback in the SEC. If you go back the last decade plus. And I thought there was a lot more good than bad in that bowl game from what he did, despite the fact that obviously the turnovers are going to stand out. But, he doesn't just have the 5-star billing to live up to, as Oklahoma fans know. He's got the Oklahoma billing to live up to as a quarterback. What should SEC fans who maybe weren't as dialed into his recruitment and this JFA mantra that he's taken on, like what should SEC fans know about Jackson Arnold?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, this is like the first thing I think 99.9% of people that cover a team say about a guy. So here we go. He's a good kid. I mean, he really, truly is. I don't think we're ever going to have to worry about seeing Jackson Arnold getting in trouble away from the field. He's very grounded. He's very sharp. He's very smart. And moments, even with the mistakes in the Alamo Bowl, I don't think you ever saw panic. I don't think you ever saw a lack of confidence. So he's a very, very confident guy. It's kind of wild. You mentioned the recruitment of him, because I talked about never wavering. He never wavered. He had made that commitment from, Denton Guyer, and it never wavered. You want to talk about Peyton Bowen. Peyton Bowen was a guy that, ripped the shirt off and committed to Oregon and then mislabeled something on his letter of intent, changed his mind, came to Oklahoma. Jackson Arnold never had that. He was OU all the way. And, I think it's tough for the fan base whenever you hear about a 5-star guy and how great he's going to be, and then he doesn't play. It's like you get in your mind, this is our savior. This is the guy that's going to bring us back. Then he's sitting on the bench all year long. So I think that was kind of hard for fans. But for him personally, this has been his place. This has been where he wants to be. And he kind of, for me, and I got to know him okay. I can't sit here and talk like we're best friends. But he seems to really embrace that Baker was here, Tyler was here, that you want to go Heupel, Aikman. All right, well, Aikman's a long time ago. But he kind of really embraces that history, that lineage of it. He wants to be the next great one. So never wavered. I mean, Oklahoma through and through, and appears to be a guy that's ready to help lead this team into the SEC. That was a big thing for him, to be on the ground floor of this. And I think you're seeing in the preparation and hearing him talk this offseason, he seems to really have a good grip on what it takes to be the face of the program.
There's a wild stat that he's trying to end, actually. And I didn't realize it was this crazy until I dug this up and I looked this up. But the last Oklahoma starting quarterback who started and finished his career in Norman was Blake Bell, who changed to tight end. Which,
right.
So if you want to say the last Oklahoma starting quarterback who started and finished his career as a quarterback in Norman was Landry Jones.
That's wild.
I mean, he's 35. Like, is that a problem? Despite all the success of the 2010s and everything that happened, like, is that an issue that hangs over the program, or is that just something for nerds like me to look up and bring up on podcasts?
No, because I love it. I love it. It's kind of funny because we thought Spencer Rattler or Caleb Williams was going to be the guy that ended that trend, right? Let's go back, and we don't have to go back to Landry Jones because we know, and you talked about Blake Bell, who moved to tight end. But, after that, Baker transferred from Tech, Kyler transferring from A&M, Jalen transferring from Philadelphia, transferring from Alabama, playing for Philadelphia now. But Spencer Rattler, okay, in the Lincoln Riley mantra, when he came in, dude, he was supposed to be the guy. There were people that were mad near the end of 2019 that wanted Spencer Rattler to play over Jalen Hurts. Now, no one will admit to that now, but in certain things that I stand out, I'm like, that's a really bad take. I remember looking back and thinking, that's a really bad take. Not because of anything negative against Spencer, but just Jalen Hurts was really good. Spencer Rattler was the guy that was handpicked. This is the guy that could best run Lincoln Riley's offense. He's from day one and was also OU through and through from the moment that he committed. And then lo and behold, some guy named Caleb Williams showed up, and the rest was history for him. So that's a wild stat. I don't think it looms. I think it was something that was really big during the Lincoln era, where fans and I think pundits, they're like, can't he develop a quarterback? He's picking up these guys, and they've already, been in a certain phase in their progress. But I think, this is me, I think that's something you're going to see that Brent Venables at Oklahoma is going to try to do. I think going forward, if Oklahoma has to go get a quarterback out of the portal, then it's because of injury, or it's because, one of the backups transferred and they need more depth. Because I start thinking about the future, and you would think this is pretty laid out for Oklahoma. It's going to be Jackson Arnold for the next couple of years, and then you hope he's at a point where he can turn pro. And then when he's done, Michael Hawkins, high-profile recruit who's waiting in the wings and will learn for 2 years. And then when he's gone, Kevin Sperry, who had played high school ball at Texas. He's now here in Oklahoma. He's playing at Midwest City. So actually, Midwest City, I think that's right. I'll
Nobody's fact-checking you on that. You're good.
Okay. But he moved to Oklahoma, and he's playing high school ball here locally. So you think, boom, 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 you have your next 3 quarterbacks. So is it something that lingers? Maybe for a past generation. But the feeling is now you've got your quarterback room hypothetically set up for quite a while. And I don't know how much you'll see Oklahoma having to use or work in the portal for that in the future if things pan out.
Plus, you got Casey Thompson, the ageless wonder, who's somehow still has eligibility coming in.
Oh, unreal. God. He's still around. Love to see it.
Yeah, I actually like. There's a part of me that wants to see him in the exact right situation, and if something were to happen to Jackson Arnold, that's one of the better insurance policies I think you can
Absolutely.
have at this level. The defensive side of the ball, it's been a very popular topic of conversation outside of quarterback in Oklahoma. It fell off a bit last year at the meat of the schedule, but I keep defaulting to this as we project for what they're going to do year one in the SEC. You got two preseason All Americans back in Stutzman and Bowman coming back, plus a year three Brent Venables defense that's eighth in America in percentage of returning defensive production, the great stat that Bill Connolly puts together. What's a fair expectation for this group? Because it feels like if there is ever a time to see one of these elite defenses in Norman again, now has to be it.
Fair expectation. You know what the fans' expectation is to shut out everyone every single
Yep.
game, and that's to be expected, right? I think a fair expectation is to see that improvement continue, right? Oklahoma missed on a couple of guys in the portal, but Brent Venables would tell you, we didn't miss on many. We didn't offer a lot, and I thought that was pretty telling. You mentioned Stutzman and Bowman. I think the development of a guy that SEC fans are going to love. His name's Kip Lewis. He's another linebacker. Kobe McKenzie, another linebacker. I think Woody Washington coming back at one of the corners is a massive deal for them. Gentry Williams just had a surgical procedure, so I don't know I think he's out for the spring. But you have three pretty high-profile recruits from last year's class in Makari Vickers, Josiah Wagner, and Jacoby Johnson that I think can factor in there at corner. And they brought in Des Malone to transfer out of San Diego State. I don't know if he's going to be a corner or a safety. But all of those areas you feel strong about, right? It's just what will the interior of that defensive line look like? They got a big blow this week, man. They lost Jacob Lacey, and I don't know the timing of it, but Brent Venables went on Gabe and Teddy's podcast, the Oklahoma Breakdown, and said that he's had a blood clot issue, so he had to retire from football. Well, he played a lot of snaps on the interior. He was a Notre Dame transfer, and really once he got cleared last year because he was having the same problems, he kind of had that look. You're like, hey, that's an SEC defensive tackle. If David Stone, the freshman, can be that dude in the interior, and you hate counting on a freshman at defensive tackle, right? Nothing against David Stone. It's just the history. They got another big kid that's coming in on the interior that's been here for since this semester. The expectations of this defense are going to be high because Brent Venables is here. They brought in Zach Alley from Western Kentucky, who is or not Western Kentucky, Birmingham, who has been kind of a right-hand guy of Brent Venables, Jacksonville State, sorry, been a right-hand man of Brent Venables for a long time. So they bring him in. You think he's going to call the defense now that Ted Roof has moved on, but we'll see. But I name all that stuff to say the improvement in year three had always been a big one for Brent Venables historically. Go back to, Oklahoma's was a little bit quicker. It helped them that they had Roy Williams and Teddy Lehman and Rocky Kalmus and Lance Mitchell that were all there, or Torrance Marshall that were all there. Clemson's was pretty substantial from year one to year two, and then year three they took off. I would expect that same growth, but there's not that NFL defensive tackle that has experience. They might be there, Jackson and Stone, but right now it's just that's the big question. Where are they on the interior? Because that's where you need to be really good in this conference, and I think it's a big question mark for them. But I would expect them to continue to get better because of Brent, because of Danny, because of Billy Bowman being back. But they've really got questions, I think, that I can't wait to see how they're answered on the interior of that defensive line.
Feels like that was the question even back in 2021 when Texas.
It's been a question nonstop, right?
Yep.
Since Joe McCoy.
Yeah, and it could be one of those areas where all of a sudden we're looking up and we're like, wow, they go on this run of cranking out NFL defensive tackles, and then pretty quickly, we move on to something else. I was crunching the numbers on the Venables buyout because that's what we do in the SEC. We talk about buyouts. Like it's a big thing, and heading into year three, it's still over $22 million, which sounds like a lot because it is. Mm-hmm. He's entering year three of a 6-year deal, and that regular season win total is 7.5, which that is very noteworthy considering the history, considering the expectations, all those different things. The schedule is daunting. So, but as weird as it sounds, history suggests that when you're in this spot after year three, you're either getting extended or you're getting fired. What's your take on that discussion and his future long term?
I think the administration is very happy with what Brent Venables is doing. Now, if they go out and they go 2-10 in the SEC, we're having a different conversation. But he's getting a fourth year. He's going to be here for 4 years. Now, what happens after that, we'll see. He's beloved. They won 10 games this year. It hurts that the losses were Oklahoma State and Kansas, but you also, you lost Danny Stutzman in one game and you didn't play in the other. And just some of the most ridiculous mistakes were made in that Oklahoma State game that still boggle my mind. So that sucks, right? They got to win, and Brent Venables knows that. Everything that the stuff that we never talk about, right? The stuff that fans don't care about, he's doing, setting the foundation of, preparing these guys for life after football. They have they have a program that they've had, the soul mission is what they call it. So he's doing all these things to prepare these guys for life. And I mean, in fairness, they're getting better on the football field. So I would say, what's something I can bet? I would bet my right arm that Brent Venables is coaching Oklahoma at least through the first 4 years of his contract. Now, if things fall apart in the SEC this year, okay, that fifth year gets really, really dicey. But Joe Castiglione's happy, donors are happy. Coach Venables hasn't come in here and been a guy that says NIL that's not how we're going to do it. We're not. They get it. They understand it. Now, I don't think you're going to see him going out and buying a recruiting class. I don't think that's ever going to be the way. And who knows what the rules look like here in a little bit. But I think there's still a high level of belief. I know there is. And it's a daunting schedule. You're right. But he's going to be back in 2025. All my years are running together. And I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma, gets that over and wins 9 games. It wouldn't surprise me at all as if he's extended. In other words, I don't think he's even on a tepid seat right now. I think everyone's really happy. Everyone knows the grind is there. And we'll kind of see how this thing plays out in the SEC. Now, if Maine beats them, all right, I withdraw putting my right arm on the table here to potentially be a wager piece. But I think that the signs are pointing up. Oklahoma has not recruited on the defensive side of the football well in a long time. And now you're starting to see those pieces come in. You're starting to see those pieces play a major role. So I think it's pretty secure. But you got to win. You got to win football games in the next 2 years.
The positive of that schedule being so daunting is that you're probably looking at this going, man, this is going to be fun. We got some big time headliner type games.
Yes.
Like, what's the game that the new SEC game? Because I buried the lead. You're wearing a Beat Texas shirt right now. So I know
that's right.
I know the game that you're most looking forward to, but what's the new SEC game that you're most looking forward to on that schedule?
Well, I think there's 2 that jump out. Everyone's going to say Alabama, but I mean, let's see what Alabama looks like. It's Nick Saban's not there anymore. I think they're very talented. I think they're very good. One, Tennessee, and here's why. Josh Heupel's coming back to town.
Yep.
I don't have to tell anyone the history. They listen, they watch you, they know. He won a Heisman Trophy here. The fallout after he was fired as an offensive coordinator in 13, it's not been pretty. So 13, 14, excuse me. All my years are running together. I'm getting old. I'm almost 50 now, so everything's running together. But I'm really excited to see how this team handles road venues. The Auburn game is going to be fascinating. But I can't wait to go to the Bayou. I can't wait to be at LSU. I can't wait to see what that looks like. I feel like we've been trying the SEC, it appears, has been trying to find something on Thanksgiving weekend for LSU. It's like they've been trying to. There was Missouri. There was Arkansas for
A&M.
A&M. Sorry, A&M, not Missouri. A&M for the longest time. I kind of thought, that's it. And then Arkansas before that. Darren McFadden. We got that wood. But I think that could be something really cool for Oklahoma and LSU. I'm a firm believer that it's the coolest atmosphere in college football. I've been there for baseball. I've been there for softball. I've been there for basketball. I can't wait to be there for a football game on Thanksgiving weekend just to see what that's like, because I think I think it's got a chance to be a game that has a lot at stake. And in the 12-team playoff, who knows,
Yeah.
what could be on the line at that point. I was listening to a conversation about, is LSU a national championship contender this year? I felt like we were having this same conversation last year about a handful of teams that it never really materialized. Is LSU that team? Maybe so. It's year 3 for Brian Kelly too. So, but that's as far as environments and as far as games. I can't wait to see Baton Rouge at night for the Sooners and LSU.
You'll love it. I mean, I have not been there at night, but Death Valley is.
I'm hoping it's unreal. At night. I'm hoping it's at night. I can't make too many assumptions yet.
I would assume
Right.
they're gonna try and make that happen tonight, especially as you're trying to establish a rivalry and do those
Sure.
things. That would make a lot of sense. That Tennessee game in week 4, I'm gonna call my shot. I'm gonna say that game day is gonna go to Norman. I'm gonna say that they're gonna go to Norman for that one instead of USC Michigan, because I'm assuming that game day will be in Ann Arbor 2 weeks earlier for the Texas Michigan game. So they're not gonna go to Michigan twice in the month of September. Big Noon Kickoff will probably be there as well. Those rivalries are going to become a lot more, noteworthy, I think, as we get into this new media rights era. But I'm putting you on the spot here. Do you know the last time that game day was in Norman when there were fans there?
Notre Dame.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I could not believe that. 2012 we're talking about.
We got smoked. But and what's funny is it was a good game. It's the things that you remember. It was a good game, and then I think it was George Atkinson broke a big run, and it was like left lane hammer down from there. Funny sidebar to that. Same night James Harden got traded. So it was literally we're in the post game show. We're in the post game show, and your dad's like, we lost to Notre Dame. That stinks. And then literally during the post game show, the voice of the Sooners, Toby Rowland, he said, "Hey, by the way, James Harden just got traded." Like, what? So, yeah, it's been a minute. Game day's been at OU, Texas. Game day's been at road trips. And you mentioned, I think they came in, 2020 once?
Yeah, 2020 came once. Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as fans being there, it's been a minute night. That'd be really cool. I think it'd be great for both programs. Tennessee's been here. Yeah. And we've been to Tennessee. We went to Tennessee. There's the 50th week. Oklahoma went to Tennessee with Baker Mayfield and the infamous, shush game. They'd come here the year before, and Julian Wilson had like 100-yard in a pick 6. So there's some really cool relationships between OU and Tennessee fans that had been developed. And there had been the non-conference game that they were supposed to play that got kind of booted as part of this new SEC alliance for Oklahoma. I'm really excited about that game. I hope you're right. And now you've given me something to talk about on my local show for the rest of the week, because if you've gone that in depth on where game day is going to be, I need to get in that rhythm. I need to be in that place right now, because that's the kind of content that I'm here for.
SaturdayDownSouth.com. I mapped out all 7. Yes, I mapped out the 7 most likely game day spots.
I gotta go now.
Yeah, it's up there. I think I had that at 5, and I regretted not putting it higher. I should have probably put it at 4, but I had Bama LSU at 4. But that's the same weekend as Ole Miss and the Georgia Ole Miss game. And then it's like, and Mizzou. I think Mizzou and Oklahoma are that weekend as well. So like that weekend is really active. But the one
stuff,
like when you actually sit there and go through all this stuff, right. I do it in February and March pretty much every year.
That's awesome.
Like, what else do I want to be doing right now? I'm not as big into hoops as others are, so it takes up some time.
Are you buying Tennessee right now?
I am buying the Tennessee offense, and I am buying James Pierce, preseason All-American on that defensive line. The Tennessee offense should be
really good.
Yeah, he is an absolute monster whenever he's on the field. But the Tennessee offense is so exciting. You bring up Nico earlier, and in a very similar spot as Jackson Arnold. Obviously, the bowl game start and how that can shape our perception for an entire offseason. But the belief that Heupel will get back to having a top 8 offense, I think, is very much on the table because of Nico, because of all the buzz he has coming in as the most hyped Tennessee quarterback recruit since Peyton Manning. I mean, yeah, I am more of a believer than not. I think it's fair that Tennessee and Oklahoma both have 12-team playoff expectations.
Yeah, I am. I started doing a little work on Tennessee this week, just kind of digging a little bit. I'm all in on the softball world, but there's downtime you have, airport waits, things of that nature. And I started doing just a look at the schedule, look at the depth chart, reading some of the different articles. You're like, dang, they're really good. So not the best. There's going to be cool storylines leading into that with Hype coming back and all, but that's going to be a real challenging one right out of the gate for the Sooners.
You just got to hype them up the entire 8-month offseason.
That's right.
By the time that game day rolls around, yeah, I think they're a top 5 team. I think they could win a national championship.
They might win the title.
I want to get you out of here with this, and you can take this any way that you want.
Okay.
You can either sell SEC fans on making a trip to Norman, or you can explain to SEC fans what they should know about Oklahoma as they enter the conference.
Ooh, let me do a little bit of both. Number one, our city, the city where I live. Now, technically, I live a little bit south. I'm out in the country. I'm trying to play farmer. But the city of Norman has embraced the expectations that come with the SEC. By that, I mean, they know there's going to be more people traveling in with RVs, and there's going to be more need for restaurants and things of that nature. But it's become a really cool area because in it you have not just Norman, you have Oklahoma City. So you come in town for a game. All right, maybe you time it right. You go watch a Thunder game too. And check out OKC, one of the best young teams in the NBA. There's fancy dining, and there's my kind of dining, to where you can go to Rudy's, or you can go to one. They have a great burger place on campus called O'Connell's. There's a place called the Mott's where their queso is to die for, and they've got a drink called the Swirl. 2 of those, you're good. Go 3, see you tomorrow. So there's a lot of really cool places to eat. There's a lot of Trey Young just opened up what's the Young Family Athletic Center. They call it the YFAC. Whole new area of town, University of North Park, that's growing up. You love Norman if you like to play golf. Toby Keith's golf course, he has golf course, got the trails. And the campus is really cool too, and it's growing. We just opened up a new softball field. Baseball is having to get renovated because you got to have a cathedral in baseball in the SEC. Golf courses, I mentioned galore, so it's a cool town. Why? Now, what was the second question? I forgot already.
What should SEC fans know about Oklahoma? Like, what's the biggest thing, or maybe a misconception that SEC fans might have right now that you would want corrected?
Well, they're not coming in here to play second-class citizen. Oklahoma's not joining the SEC to just say, "Hey, high five. Where's our paycheck for the TV rights deal?" This administration has known from the moment that this move was made that everything needs to step up and everything needs to improve. And you've seen it in the facilities that have been overhauled, even the football facility that has been overhauled and has been restructured and re-engineered. Oklahoma's not coming into this to be a second-class citizen. They, as a program, as every program, are coming in to say we're here to compete. I think most fan bases get that. I really do. But there's always been like this pushback from a couple of different levels of fans where it's like, yeah, no one really cares about you guys coming here. It's like, oh, okay, that's fine. But Oklahoma's not coming in here with this mindset that they're going to be 1 year competing for like second or third place, and then the next 5 years just hoping to get bowl eligible. They're here to try to be Bama. They're here to try to be Georgia. They're here to try to be a national championship contender year in and year out. It's gonna be tough, right? I mean, this is a different level of schedule, football-wise, baseball-wise, softball-wise, basketball-wise, that they've ever seen. I mean, you could maybe argue that the only sport to where you're getting a little bit of a break might be basketball. But then in that same vein, you're going into a place where in women's, you got the defending national champs, Kim Mulkey. Yep. And on the men's side of things, Bruce Pearl's not backing down at Auburn. Kentucky's still great. I understand what's going on with Nate Oates, and they had a kind of a tough outing as we taped this last night. But I think that's what people should know. Oklahoma's not just coming in to cash a check. They want to compete, and they want you to come here. The game day environment has improved so much over the last few years because they want it to be a place where opposing SEC fans come in and say, "This is awesome, and we want to come back, and we want to bring our families, and we want to bring our friends." It's not just cashing a check. It's not just making sure ends meet. We're coming here to try to win titles, try to kick some backside and win championships. And I think that they're ready. Now we'll see. You can get a good old what's the great Mike Tyson line? Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. So we'll find out pretty quick. But Oklahoma's making this move to try to compete and to try to be elite, and they have been for the entire history of their program. So now it's a chance to see, at least in the football side of things, can they take that next step up?
I need to make a trip. I have not been. You had me at queso. I mean,
Best queso I've ever had, man. Vermont. Oh my gosh. In fact, I think I'm going to go get some as soon as we're done here. I've got a softball game tonight. It's not till 6. I can't have a swirl, maybe after the game, but you can't go wrong. There's great restaurants here. There's great people. I think you'll like the people here. It's a really cool town. I've lived here in Norman since, well, I live in Goldsby, but it's Norman proper. I moved down here in 15. I've been in Oklahoma my whole adult life. It's really an underrated state.
Last one. How much horns down is too much horns down?
No such thing.
Yeah, okay.
No such thing. In fact, I don't know what's going on with Rodney Terry this year. I love that man, but my gosh, he's gotten to a level of soft that I'm not comfortable with. And you know what's kind of funny is I don't think a majority of Texas fans mind it too much.
Agreed. Agreed.
I think a majority of Texas fans are like, you're so enamored with making us a part of your celebration. But there's like these very loud, vocal, kind of smaller groups that just freak out about it. So no such thing as too much horns down. You can do it as much as you want, anytime, anywhere. It's a beautiful thing.
Chris, really appreciate it, man. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, anytime. I love this. Thanks for having me, man.